let's talk national issues. The acting Inspector General of Police, Disu, has now assumed office. But this is a charge that he got from President Bola Tinubu. Restore peace and strengthen security nationwide. The president issued this directive at the decoration of Mr. Disu as the acting Inspector General of Police following the resignation of Mr. Kayode Egbetokun, also former IGP, pending the Nigeria Police Council's ratification of the appointment and the Senate's confirmation. So from this place, that's the State House, he headed straight to the force headquarters where, formally assumed office, pledged sweeping reforms anchored on professionalism, accountability, and community partnership.
I will let them know that the area of impunity is over. I will ensure that I train them and encourage them to ensure they follow human rights. I will ensure that they know that I will try to follow a regime of zero tolerance to corruption. And most importantly, I'm going to drum it into them that we can never succeed without the cooperation of members of the public.
And my advice to him again is that he knows all those things we've been doing together, the structuring our intelligence coordination, improving interagency deployment model, dismantling several criminal syndicates. I'm sure he's going to continue to do that. And improving our intelligence response mechanisms. I have so much confidence that he will surpass what I have done.
For you to assume this responsibility, because I know your record. I believe in dedication that you've exhibited while you were in Lagos and I was the governor of Lagos State. And now you assume this responsibility at a defining moment for our nation's security, and expect you to strengthen the discipline, enhance interagency collaboration, and restore public confidence in Nigerian police. Lead firmly but fairly, demand professionalism at every level, and ensure that safety of lives and property remains our highest priority. It's a daunting challenge. I know you can do it. You have my full support as you have to advance the security pillars of Renew Hope agenda.
The 23rd Indigenous IGP of Nigeria.
The expectation is that IGP Tunji Disu will succeed. I think we all know his record from RRS to every other place he's covered. So for me, I expect him to, he has highlighted in his speech that he gave after he met with the president and was decorated, making sure that the citizens are the boss. And I like that narrative. Like, look, this is about serving the people. Nothing is more important than that. From his history, we expect a lot of intelligence and innovation. And from his history, we expect him to motivate the men to be at their best. I remember during the NSAS moment, because NSAS was due to the bad element in the police force known as SAS, the ones that are bad in SAS, they came up rebranding RRS to be the good guys, and we all bought into that. So when you see RRS, you're not scared. You want to be friendly with them. So there's something about him that helps him to motivate his men one way or the other. So if IGP acting capacity now, Tunji Disu, doesn't succeed, we will now know that it is the system that swallowed him.
I'm not sure I should disagree, but there are a lot of expectations from the new Inspector General of Police acting yet to be confirmed. One would be, since the people are supreme under his watch as head of the force, we want to see improvement in police and civil relations. That is very critical at this point because of the traditional hostility that we often see between the police and the members of the public. We've seen the outcomes of that in unwholesome history, the NSARS. So what we require at this point in time is the empowerment of the police under his watch to improve the morale of the force in remuneration, in promotions, and we've seen the civil society embark upon, this activism in support of the force, either, through retired police officers or also, for members of the force actively in service as well. We want to see training for members of the force. We want to see, our police structures improved, not smelly, not dark rooms, not police stations that are poorly lit and looking like some things that were still structures of the 1960s. We want to see a police force members of the force that are professional, that are not manned at checkpoints to continue to collect bribes. And so the new IGP acting has his work cut out for him. We could go on and on about recruitment such that the police now increases its intervention and reduces the pressure on the armed forces. And so this new IGP, we want to see him be able to say to the executive, these are the requirements in order to have a fully functional police force, operational force that is effective and efficient.
I'd like for every police officer in Nigeria to have a little card in their pocket that speaks to the value of every Nigerian life. I think that's very fundamental. Every police officer should understand the value of a Nigerian life because protection and service obeys value, and that is what it is. You only protect what is valuable. You only serve what you believe is valuable. But the moment you don't have an understanding of the value, or you don't value that thing as much, there's no point. Nobody protects things that are of no value. You don't find policemen protecting 10 naira. You find them protecting a bullion van. You find them protecting vaults. So every police officer, rank and file, must understand that every Nigerian life has a measurable value. And then you begin to really see the police protecting and serving not just those in power, because they see them as valuable, that's why they get all of that protection, but everyday Nigerians like you and I.
All right. Another thing we're tracking as well, the INEC has actually now spoken about the issue that played out at the FCT polls, where we saw all kinds of some results that, in my view, shouldn't have even made it. In fact, if they made it to the IREV, they should be cancelled at the polling unit because of the multiple levels of cancellation. So the Independent National Electoral Commission has vowed now to enforce sanctions on staff who compromise standards at the just concluded area council elections in the FCT. Chairman of the Commission, Professor George Amopiton, stated this at a meeting with rects in Abuja. Guys, I think it's in the right direction. When you see some of those results, they should never have made it beyond anywhere. Okay, maybe for the record, it's an area, but at the collation center, that should go with the wind because it's confusing, generating lots of controversy, further damping confidence in the people at the end of the day. Guys.
Well, are we surprised that we have such still shaping our electoral process at this particular point in time? The last conversation that we had with the National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Congress elicited some reactions with Cardi's question about how this election was fought and won in the first place. And came against the backdrop of the debate shaping the amendments to the Electoral Act 2026 that we now have as a document. And so when we still have a lot of human interference shaping our elections, we're still going to be seeing mutilated election results. I mean, another part of the conversation that we didn't quite explore came through from Rivers State, where there were reports that, in fact, some INEC officials didn't count ballots in a particular ward. They didn't count the ballots, and they just went away. That means they just went away with the result sheet and the entire materials used to, carry out the elections in that particular ward. And so, will INEC be looking into that? Will those election officials be sanctioned? So, as long as we have human interference in critical aspects of our elections, that is, when voting has been done with and counting is sorted, and then those materials are taken to collection center, then we'll continue to see very funny looking result sheets, forms EC8A. We'll hear stories of ballot boxes being carted away. And so the advocacy for a better electoral process continues.
Absolutely. And I think the evidence is out there. I think we also know what we need to do. So let's get to work. We have big elections ahead of us. But let's also tell you that an improvised explosive device detonated in the early hours of yesterday along the Gusau-Funtua highway in Zanfara State, damaging a trailer loaded with cement around Ongua Mechida village, causing major traffic disruption. So disturbing scenes from that accident in the aftermath, and you see that local sources speaking to us said that the device suspected to have been planted by terrorists exploded as a trailer was passing through the area. So it looks like another MO from the terrorists now implanting these IEDs in vehicles or close to vehicles. And I recall that this particular route had sort of been closed in a manner of speaking because they needed to clear some of these explosive devices planted on the road. So a lot of work for the security agents to do, and I think we can just link this to the president speaking to the senators, asking them to tinker with the Constitution to accommodate state police. The president was speaking during the breaking of a fast. He hosted the 10th Senate during the breaking of a fast, an interfaith breaking of a fast with senators at the presidential villa in Abuja. So all eyes back on the Senate, guys, to see if we're finally, well, let me say the National Assembly, if we're finally going to have state police under this administration.
Absolutely. So there's a lot more to talk about, including the face-off that happened between Omoyele Sowore and the Honorable Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, over some reconciliation that was supposed to ensue, and the former presidential candidate that told the minister that don't use the institution of state to settle personal scores. But we'll touch base with that maybe later on. But we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the headlines according to how the dailies have captured it today across board. Stay with us.